The 10 best poker tips in the world. The wisdom of the greatest champions in one video. Right now, thousands of players are losing money at poker, not because they lack talent, not because they don't study, but because they never heard the right advice. And that's the problem. There's so much content out there. Videos, articles, courses, books. But most of it is noise. Information without substance. Theory without real application. I spent months compiling something different. The 10 best poker tips ever given in the history of the game. From champions who won over $500 million combined. Phil Ivey, Daniel Negreanu, Doyle Brunson, Gus Hansen. The names that defined what it means to be a winner. Each tip you'll hear in the next few minutes has the power to completely transform your game. These aren't abstract theories. These aren't concepts to sound smart. These are lessons forged in decades of battle at the biggest tables in the world. Doyle Brunson played poker professionally for over 50 years, wrote Super System and the Poker Bible, won 10 WSOP bracelets, and is called the Godfather of Poker for a reason. Phil Ivey has won over $38 million in documented tournament earnings, probably hundreds of millions in private cash games, is considered by many the best living player. His ability to read people is legendary. Daniel Negreanu is the all-time biggest winner in live tournaments, over $50 million in earnings, revolutionized the game with small ball poker, and continues to evolve and dominate decades later. And today, the wisdom of all of them is yours, condensed into 10 transformative lessons. If you're starting out in poker, this video will save you years of painful mistakes. If you've been playing for a while, this video will reveal what's missing in your game. If you want to become a professional, this video is mandatory. And I'm going to ask you one thing before we start. If in the next few minutes you learn at least one new thing, just one thing that improves your game, leave a like now, because that like helps me continue bringing this type of content. Deal. Let's get into the 10 best poker tips in the world. Tip number 1. Poker is a game of people, not cards. This is perhaps the most important tip that exists. And it comes directly from Doyle Brunson, the godfather of poker, 2-time world champion, 10 WSOP bracelets. Doyle said, "Poker is a game of people. It's not the hand I hold. It's the people I play with. Most players are obsessed with cards. What's my range? What's my hand's equity? What's the ideal C-bet frequency?" And all of that matters. But Doyle reminds us of something fundamental. You're not playing against a computer. You're playing against people. In Super System, Doyle wrote, "More than any other game, poker depends on your understanding of the opponent. You need to know what makes him tick. More importantly, what makes him tick right now. This is the key. The same player can play completely different ways, depending on mood, on the moment, if he's winning or losing, if he's tired or focused." Phil Ivey, considered by many the best in the world, is famous for his death stare. He observes opponents with an intensity that frightens, because he knows the answer isn't in the cards, it's in the person in front of him. Lex Veldhuis, pro player who played against Ivey, said, "Ivey's natural game understanding is brilliant. He has an incredible ability to dissect someone's game, to look at what your overall strategy is and how you apply it. If you have an edge over Ivey in a game, the best thing to do is play him for only half a day, because he will completely figure you out. This is the lesson. Stop playing your cards. Start playing your opponents. Observe, analyze, adapt." How to apply this in practice? Before looking at your cards, observe who's in the hand. What's the emotional state of each one? Who seems anxious? Who seems bored? Who's paying attention? After you enter the hand, don't just focus on the board. Focus on reactions to the board. Who looked too quickly? Who took time to act? Who changed posture? Doyle added, when you catch a bluff, observe how the player bet, how he was sitting, what his tone of voice was. Store that information. It will be worth gold later. This tip alone can transform your game, because most players don't do this. They're too busy looking at their own cards. Tip number 2, every bet needs to have a purpose. Phil Ivey has won 10 WSOP bracelets, over $38 million in tournaments, and probably much more in private cash games. In his masterclass, he revealed, "Betting in poker is about maximizing value. You need to know how to get worse hands to call and better hands to fold. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most challenging parts of the game. You have to understand that every bet has a reason or purpose. This phrase is revolutionary. Every bet has a reason or purpose. How many times have you bet just because it was your turn? How many times did you bet a random amount? How many times did you bet without knowing exactly what you wanted? Ivy continues, when you've mastered betting tactics, you will be unstoppable at the table. The purposes of a bet are limited. Value, you want to get paid by worse hands. Bluff, you want better hands to fold. Protection, you want to deny equity from draws. Information, you want to find out where you are in the hand. Before each bet, ask, what's my goal here? What sizing achieves that goal best? Who do I want to call? Who do I want to fold? Ivy also said about sizing, finding the right bet size has to do with your opponent. What amount you think he'll fold for, or what amount you think he'll continue for. This means the same bet amount can be correct against one player and completely wrong against another. There's no standard sizing. There's the right sizing for that situation, against that specific opponent, with that specific goal. Practical exercise. In your next session, before each bet, pause for 1 second. Ask, what's my objective? If you can't answer, you probably shouldn't be betting. Ivy also talked about consistency. One of the things that separates the best is that they have a reason for everything. Each check, each call, each raise. It's not random. It's part of a bigger plan. And about adaptation. The sizing that works against one player can be completely wrong against another. A tight player needs smaller bets to fold. A calling station won't fold to any sizing. So you adjust your purpose. This mindset of purpose is what separates recreational players from professionals. Betting without purpose is donating money. Betting with purpose is building an empire. Tip number 3. Don't play tired or with problems. Doyle Brunson has another rule he considers fundamental. Poker requires complete concentration. Don't play when you're tired or preoccupied with personal problems. Seems obvious, right? But how many times have you played after an argument? How many times did you play to forget your problems? How many times did you play exhausted because you were already at the table? Doyle elaborates in Super System. Romantic problems have the biggest effects. I've seen very good, solid players, even by professional standards, thrown back into childhood by their wives or girlfriends. Emotional entanglements affect judgment in everything, and at the poker table, it costs money. He continues, they divert their interest to their love affairs. They can't concentrate. They have trouble sitting and want to walk around. Poker doesn't work that way. Phil Ivey talked about this in his interview with Joe Ingram. I used poker as an escape from reality for many years. From 18 to 32, I played almost every day, many hours. I spent those years that people mature at a poker table, so I never really grew up, never dealt with any emotion. Phil learned the hard way that not resolving your problems off the table directly affects your performance at it. He now says, it's important to have a routine, exercise, or food. It's important who you surround yourself with. I actively pursue relationships with people instead of being by myself. The lesson is clear. Your life off the table affects your performance at it. There's no separation. How to identify if you're ready? Ask these questions before playing. Did I sleep well last night? Am I worried about something outside poker? Am I irritated or frustrated for any reason? How long ago did I eat? Am I playing to win or to escape? If any answer is negative, seriously consider not playing. Doyle also said, come to the table with enough time to stay and play a while. Friday night poker sessions where you play for 1 hour and leave are usually wasted. Mental preparation is as important as technique. The best players treat it like athletes. Sleep, nutrition, emotional state. Everything affects performance. Phil Ivey now exercises regularly, takes care of nutrition, chooses who he surrounds himself with, because he understood everything is connected. Golden rule. If you're not 100% mentally present, don't play. Do something else. Poker will be there tomorrow. Money lost playing in a bad mental state never comes back. Tip number 4. Bankroll management is everything. Phil Ivey, with all his genius, publicly admitted something important. He went broke several times in his career. And today his advice is, playing over your head puts yourself in a bad financial spot. It doesn't have to be that way. If you're new to poker, it can be an enjoyable game, a great hobby. If you don't go overboard, pace yourself, and move up in stakes at the right time, it will be a much more enjoyable experience. The Upswing Poker explained. Ivy's insistence on good bankroll management comes from his own trial and error. In his youth, he often went broke playing over his head, and learned his lessons from that. All players want to move up in stakes. It's natural. You're winning at 1-2. Want to test 2-5. You're crushing 2-5. The 5-10 looks so attractive. But moving up at the wrong time can destroy your bankroll in one session and send you back to the beginning. Practical bankroll rules. For cash games, 20 buy-ins minimum for solid players, 30 buy-ins for beginners or evolving players, 50 buy-ins if you play aggressive or face high variance. For tournaments, 100 buy-ins is standard, 200 buy-ins if you play big MTTs. Tournament variance is brutal. When to move up? Wait to have 30 or more buy-ins for the next level. Have proven win rate at current level. Be mentally prepared for bigger losses. When to move down? If you lost 10 or more buy-ins, move down immediately. No ego, no shame. It's the smart thing to do. Doyle Brunson also talked about this. I remember losing $98,000 in a game that didn't warrant losing $10,000. This advice is, do as I say, not as I did. Learn from others' mistakes. Phil Ivey also said, taking shots has its place, but playing within your bankroll and not going overboard is one of the best pieces of advice I can give. The irony is that the most successful players are often the most conservative with their bankroll, because they understand variance and know it can destroy anyone. You don't need to repeat these mistakes. Be disciplined. Protect your bankroll as your most precious asset, because it is. Tip number 5. Aggression is key, but with purpose. Doyle Brunson said one of poker's most quoted phrases. The key to no-limit hold'em is to put a man to a decision for all his chips. This phrase defines the essence of aggression. You don't win poker by waiting. You win by forcing decisions. Gus Hansen, the legendary Great Dane, elaborated, when I'm the big stack in a tournament, being the bully is always my first consideration. I want to eliminate players, continue building my stack, and avoid dangerous situations. If I can create a scenario where I'm the table captain, where I dictate the size of pots, the rest of the action becomes easier to read. But attention, aggression doesn't mean stupidity. Doyle also wrote, there's a well-known poker player who has talent for figuring out exactly your hand, but when he decides you're holding a pair of jacks and his hand won't beat the jacks, he tries to make you fold. To me, that's not being aggressive. That's being stupid. It works sometimes. But should you risk your money when you think the opponent has a good hand? Let him win the pot. Wait until you think he has nothing. Then you try to bluff. The lesson is subtle but crucial. Aggression must be directed, not blind. Doyle summarized perfectly. The key to winning at poker is to bet aggressively when you have the advantage and fold when you don't. Simple as that. But hard to execute. How to identify the right time to be aggressive? You have range advantage. Your opponent seems weak. You have fold equity. Pot odds justify the bluff. Your image supports the play. To be passive. You're beat most of the time. Your opponent won't fold. You have showdown value. The situation isn't worth the risk. Doyle also talked about changing gears. Changing gears is one of the most important parts of poker. It means alternating between loose and tight play. Don't do it gradually. It works better to switch suddenly. Once they catch on, change gears again. This constant variation prevents opponents from reading you and keeps you unpredictable. But the foundation remains. Aggression with purpose. Not aggression from ego. Not aggression from tilt. Aggression because it's the highest EV play. Be aggressive at the right times. Be passive at the right times. Knowing the difference is what separates winners from losers. Tip number 6. Small ball poker. Minimize variance, maximize edge. Daniel Negreanu revolutionized poker with a concept, small ball poker. He explained, this means you size your bets much smaller to have the chance to play many more hands. If you look at high roller tournaments, you see lots of small pre-flop raises and small bets on the flop. But on turns and rivers we see 2x or 3x pot. Huge overbets to put maximum pressure. The central concept: bet small at the beginning of the hand. Bet big at the end when necessary. Daniel said, "It's imperative to save a few chips whenever possible when playing small ball poker. You never want to risk a high percentage of your chips unless you have a monster hand." Why does this work? First, you see more flops. With smaller pre-flop raises, you can play more hands profitably and have more opportunities to hit. Second, you lose less when you're wrong. If you c-bet 1 to 3 pot instead of 2 to 3, your bluffs cost half and you can bluff more frequently. Third, you win more when you're right. Small bets keep opponents in the hand until you unleash the overbet on the river. Daniel also warned, bluffing is most effective when done sporadically. Bluff too often and you destroy your credibility. He also said something crucial about tournaments. The ability to do basic math calculations is certainly an integral part of fundamental poker. But in tournament poker, it's equally important to understand that survival often trumps mathematics in coin flip situations. Practical application of small ball. Pre-flop. Instead of opening 3x, open 2 to 2.5x. You risk less to win the blinds and can play more hands profitably. Flop. Instead of c-bet 66% pot, c-bet 25 to 33%. You keep more hands in opponent's range and lose less when bluffing. Turn and river. This is where you can use big sizings. Overbets of 1.5x pot or more to maximize value or fold equity. Daniel also said about protection. Protect your hand when you're confident you're in the lead. Don't be greedy trying to extract more chips when the pot is already large. And about timing. Don't keep limping when the blinds are low. With blinds 25-50, there's 75 in the pot. That's nothing. Later, when there are antes, there's much more to win. That's when you should loosen up. Small ball isn't playing passive. It's playing efficient, maximizing opportunities, minimizing unnecessary losses. This philosophy transformed modern poker, and today is the foundation of almost every professional's game. Tip number 7. Focus on process, not results. Daniel Negreanu said something every player should tattoo. To be a successful poker player, you have to be able to ignore the result and focus on making the right decisions. This is perhaps the hardest mental shift in poker. You did everything right. Put the opponent all in with 80% equity. He hit the 2-outer on the river. You lost. You did everything wrong. Called with a trash hand. Hit 2-pair miraculously. You won. In which hand did you play better? Obviously the first, but your bankroll says otherwise. This is where players get lost. They start evaluating decisions by results, not by process. Daniel elaborated, you can make the right decision and still lose. You can make the wrong decision and still win. If you let short-term results influence your future decisions, you'll destroy your game. Phil Ivey said about variance, poker is an extremely high variance game. Some days it feels like you can't win a hand. Other days, you feel invincible. The best players in the world have accepted the fact that you can't win every time you sit down. The correct mindset. Evaluate each decision in isolation. Was this decision correct with the information I had? If yes, great, even if I lost. If no, what can I learn? Negreanu also said, failure is important. Everyone fails. I did too. More than once I was in Vegas winning money, thinking I had the game figured out. And 24 hours later I was so broke I had to walk back to my hotel. Those walks were very important to me. I still benefit from them because I learned something every time. How to analyze your hands correctly. After each session, ask, did I make the best possible decision with the information I had? Is there something I could have observed that I missed? Was my logic correct even if the result wasn't? Ask, did I win or lose? Why did the idiot hit the 2-outer? Why does it always happen to me? The improvement process. Play your session. Mark important hands. Review each one afterward. Identify errors in the process. Make adjustments for next session. Repeat infinitely. Phil Ivey said, there's no greater teacher than experience. But experience without reflection is useless. You need to process what happened, understand why, and then apply it next time. This constant improvement cycle is what separates players who evolve from players who stay stagnant for years. Learn from losses, but don't let them change correct decisions. Tip number 8, don't follow solvers blindly against Rex. Phil Galfond is one of the greatest cash game players in history and understands solvers better than most. But his advice surprised many. Small-stakes poker games are not the place for advanced strategy. It doesn't matter what a solver says. It can't predict how a beginner will play. This is revolutionary coming from one of the greatest students of the game. Galfond explains, all solver outputs are based on GTO poker strategy and assume your opponents play optimally. But amateur players play completely differently from solvers. That's why trying to play GTO against them is a waste. Instead, focus on strong exploits at the low levels. Learn how to extract maximum value from each individual opponent and their flaws at the table. The reality, GTO is a defense against perfect players. But perfect players are extremely rare, especially at low stakes. If your opponent folds too much to 3-bets, you should be 3-betting more as a bluff, not following the optimal frequency from a solver. If your opponent never folds top pair, you should stop bluffing him, not continue because the solver says I should bluff here. Daniel Negreanu said something similar. Obsession with statistics won't make you a better poker player. In fact, you'll end up wasting valuable time on that when you should be concentrating on crucial issues like reading your opponents and studying the psychological aspects of the game. Examples of common exploits. Against player who folds too much to C-bet, increase your C-bet frequency to 90% or more. Bet small, collect the free pots. Against player who never folds, stop bluffing completely. Value bet thinner, let him pay you off. Against player who only bets when he has it, fold more when he bets, bluff more when he checks. Against player who 3-bets too much, 4-bet light more frequently, or trap more with premium hands. Daniel also warned, professionals win because they play with solid basic principles and are capable of recognizing dangerous situations. When a pro is playing a big pot, he's rarely bluffing, especially in a tournament where one mistake can cost all the chips. The lesson, learn GTO as foundation, but adapt against real players. The money is in the exploits, not in theoretical perfection. GTO is the armor. Exploits are the sword. You need both to win. Tip number 9, learn to read people and the small details. Daniel Negreanu has a legendary ability. He can say out loud the opponent's exact hand, and usually he's right. How does he do this? He said, learn to read the players. Pay attention to the small details, but remember that every player is different. This is learned through experience. There's no magic formula. There's no, if he scratches his nose, he's bluffing. Each person is unique. Doyle Brunson wrote extensively about this. Other players have patterns that, while less pronounced, are definitely visible to a professional. You consider the way they're sitting, their previous playing habits, how they bet, and often even the tone of their voices. It's the totality of everything about them, not one particular thing. The key is totality. Don't look for an isolated tell. Look for the complete pattern. Doyle also warned, once you've classified a player's basic style, don't make the mistake of assuming he'll play that way every day of his life. People change their state of mind, sometimes from hand to hand. Phil Ivey is a master at this. In a famous hand against Tony G, Tony had a set and Ivey had only 2 pair. Tony bet all in. What did Ivey do? He simply looked at Tony for a long time, studying every micro-expression, every movement, every breath, and then folded. The correct decision. Most players would look at the cards, calculate odds, and call. Ivey looked at the person and knew he was beat. Daniel said, I've done reverse tells on several occasions to mislead other opponents. This means tells can be manipulated. That's why observe the total pattern, not just one behavior. Elements to observe. Timing. How long did it take to act? Instant action usually indicates strength or easy decision. Delay can indicate difficult decision or acting. Posture. How is he sitting? Leaning forward means interested. Leaning back means relaxed or disinterested. Sudden changes are significant. Hands. What is he doing with chips? Fidgeting nervously indicates anxiety. Steady hands indicate confidence. Covering cards indicates protection. Eyes. Where does he look after the flop? At chips means thinking about betting. At opponent means seeking information. Down means avoiding contact. Voice. What's the tone when speaking? Higher pitch indicates tension. Lower pitch indicates relaxation. Change from pattern is significant. Doyle wrote, "Concentrate on everything when you're playing. Watch and listen. You need to do both, and relate the two. Reading people is a skill that develops with practice. The more you observe, the more patterns you'll see, and the more money you'll make." Tip number 10. Have a greater purpose. Daniel Negreanu said something profound. "I believe it's not enough to know what you want or where you want to go. You also need to know how to get there and why you want to get there." He used an example. Take a poker tournament. Why do you want to win it? The money, you say. But what are you going to do with it? This is a concept that goes beyond poker, but directly affects your performance in it. When you have a clear purpose, you have motivation to study. You have discipline to stop when you should. You have resilience when you lose. Without purpose, you play by inertia, without direction, without real improvement. Phil Ivey said, "If poker really matters, then that's what you're naturally going to be doing." There's no greater teacher than experience. He also talked about priorities. It's important to prioritize what's important to you and what really matters. That way you can put yourself in the best position to excel not just at poker, but in life. Finding your purpose. Ask yourself, why do I play poker? For money? To escape? For the challenge? What does poker represent in my life? Where do I want to be in 1 year? 5 years? What do I need to do to get there? When you have clear answers, your decisions become easier. You know when to study, when to play, when to rest, when to move up in stakes, when to step back. Daniel also said, if you haven't played a hand in a while, make sure people know it. Because only then will you get credit. If others don't realize you haven't played, you can't benefit from it. This is the strategic mindset. Everything has purpose, even the image you project. Ivy added, to be successful at poker, you have to be patient, dedicated, and adaptable. You have to constantly work at your game and always look to improve yourself. There's a lot that goes into playing poker, a lot that most people don't see. It's not an easy life. But there are some basic strategies that have helped me get to where I am. The final wisdom from Doyle Brunson. Poker teaches you more about life than any other game. It's a microcosm of decision-making, risk management, and psychological warfare. And the phrase that sums it all up. Poker is a game of skill. Luck may rule in the short term, but in the long run, skill prevails. This is your invitation to develop that skill. With purpose, with dedication, with the lessons from the greatest who ever played. The journey is long, but with clear purpose, every step makes sense. And so we come to the end of the 10 best poker tips in the world. Let's quickly recap. Tip 1. Poker is a game of people, not cards. Read your opponents, not just your hands. Tip 2. Every bet needs to have a purpose. Value, bluff, protection, or information. Tip 3. Don't play tired or with problems. Your life off the table affects your game. Tip 4. Bankroll management is everything. Protect your bankroll as your most precious asset. Tip 5. Aggression is key, but with purpose. Bet aggressively when you have advantage. Fold when you don't. Tip 6. Small ball. Minimize variance. Maximize edge. Bet small early, big when necessary. Tip 7. Focus on process, not results. Right decisions don't always win, and that's okay. Tip 8. Don't follow solvers blindly. The money is in exploits against real players. People in small details. Observe the total pattern, not isolated tells. Tip 10. Have a greater purpose. Know why you want to win. These tips come from players who dedicated their lives to poker, who won hundreds of millions of dollars, who were tested at the biggest tables in the world. And now that wisdom is yours. If this video added value to your game, I have a sincere request. Leave a like now. That like isn't just a number. It's what tells the algorithm to show this video to more players who need to hear this. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next strategic content. And if you know someone who needs to hear these tips, share this video with them. You can transform the game of someone you care about. One last thing before you go. These 10 tips represent decades of wisdom, millions of hands played, billions of dollars won and lost. Don't try to implement all of them at once. Choose one tip to focus on this week, master it, then move to the next. In 10 weeks, you will have completely transformed your game. The champions who created this wisdom started exactly where you are now, with the desire to improve, with thirst for knowledge, with the courage to apply what they learned. You have everything you need. Now it's your turn to use it. See you at the tables, where wisdom transforms into chips, and chips transform into victories. Good luck at the tables, and may the cards always be in your favor. But more importantly, may your decisions always be correct.